In this period of isolation that many of us have gone through, we were given an unusual chance to pause and reevaluate so much about our lives. One of the subjects that consistently resurfaced was the matter of relationships, human bonds, companionship, and the role that people play in shaping our hearts and our direction. Families were distanced, many unable to see one another for long stretches of time. Some of us went more than a year without seeing close friends, while some even lost friends during this separation. Being moved from public life into private spaces forced many to reflect on how much outside influence had shaped them and what they were missing or neglecting in their personal, private spaces. When we speak about friendships, people often assume this is mainly relevant to youth children, teenagers, or young adults. Most conversations about good friends and harmful friends are directed toward the young. But when we look at the classical works of spirituality and purification of the soul, we find that this subject is not age-restricted. It is not a topic that applies only to a certain group. The truth is that only the conditions of friendship change as we grow older. The importance of companionship itself remains constant. Even when observing the Prophet ﷺ's teachings, peace be upon him, we do not see him addressing only the youth regarding friendship. Instead, his guidance applies to all. The well-known hadith states that a person follows the way of their close companion, so each person should carefully choose whom they take as a friend. If a person adopts the religion, habits, and character of their friends, then how much more significant is the influence of a spouse? Many people enter marriage for the wrong reasons and later attempt to insert religious expectations and character compatibility into a relationship that was not built upon them. But if what makes a person beloved to Allah is their faith and character, then naturally these should be the two qualities one looks for in a spouse, because your spouse becomes your closest companion and will certainly influence your religion and character. The scholars often explain that the best kind of relationship is the one founded upon the remembrance of Allah. Two people may have nothing worldly in common, yet a deep and lasting connection forms between them solely because they share a sincere love for Allah and a strong attachment to their faith. That bond becomes a means for them to enter paradise and, on the Day of Judgment, even be envied by prophets. The Prophet, peace be upon him, mentioned that those who love each other purely for Allah will be placed upon elevated platforms of light under the shade of Allah's throne. People will admire them because their relationship was built entirely for Allah's sake. They met for Allah, remained together for Allah, and parted for Allah. This was beautifully reflected in the supplication of Musa, asking Allah to appoint his brother Harun to assist him. Though Harun was already his sibling, Musa wanted someone beside him who shared his mission and could strengthen his resolve, someone who would help him stay steadfast and remain focused on the responsibility Allah gave him. A righteous companion pushes you toward good, even at times when your own determination becomes weak or you fail to notice your shortcomings. Together, two righteous friends uplift one another, reminding each other often, praying together, and supporting each other in carrying out the trust of faith. This is one of the remarkable aspects of the relationships of the companions of the Prophet, may Allah be pleased with them. What would bring Abu Bakr and Bilal into the same intimate circle of friendship? What would unite Umar with people whose backgrounds and circumstances were entirely different from his? What made individuals from various tribes, races, and cultures gather in one place? It was only their shared love for Allah and their pursuit of His pleasure. So the best friendship is one initiated purely for Allah's sake and nourished through His obedience. In contrast, the worst relationship is one that begins with sinful intent or revolves around disobedience. Scholars point out that when a relationship begins with evil or is rooted in wrongdoing, it rarely reforms into something good. Relationships formed for the wrong purposes often continue pulling a person toward harm, and such connections usually require a clean cut. Furthermore, scholars highlight that many of our friendships fall into categories that were never intentionally chosen. Some friendships are simply products of circumstance. People of similar age, classmates, co-workers, neighbors, or community members whom we naturally became close to. Others are based on shared interests or tastes, not necessarily rooted in faith or purposeful values. The challenge arises when our priorities change, when someone sincerely wants to draw nearer to Allah but feels bound by social expectations, old habits, or long-standing friendships. It becomes difficult to lessen time with certain people or shift social patterns, especially when these relationships have history or emotional familiarity. The companions did not cut off every non-Muslim friend when they embraced Islam. Instead, they invited them to the truth. Some relationships even continued on neutral terms until they eventually led to guidance. But there were also relationships that had to be reshaped or moderated, because faith came first. Today, when adults experience peer influence, it may not look like adolescent peer pressure, but it manifests in different forms: social norms, style of gatherings, conversations, habits, entertainment, and cultural expectations. Younger people fear judgment from peers. Older people often fear loneliness or losing long-term friendships. But regardless of age, one constant remains. Your companionship influences you. You cannot escape it. You will be shaped by those around you, often in ways so subtle that you fail to notice them. People begin speaking alike, joking alike, reacting alike. Morals shift, standards shift, and what once felt wrong may start to feel normal, or what felt normal may begin to feel wrong, depending solely on who surrounds you. The Prophet, peace be upon him, emphasized this subtle influence through the example of the seller of musk and the blacksmith. A righteous friend is like someone who sells perfume. Even if you do not buy anything, simply standing near them will leave you with a pleasant scent. Likewise, an evil companion is like a blacksmith who deals with fumes and smoke. You may not handle the coal yourself, but standing nearby leaves its foul odor on you. The influence happens whether you approve of it or not. One of the most profound statements from the righteous is, "I love the people of righteousness even if I do not consider myself among them." Meaning, even if I feel that their level is higher than mine, I still want to accompany them so that perhaps their goodness rubs off on me in this life and so that they might intercede for me in the next. And conversely, I dislike those who engage in evil, even if I share similar flaws with them, because I do not want to be with such people on the day of judgment. This way of viewing relationships becomes a powerful tool. Do you wish to be around people who merely avoid sin? That is good and praiseworthy. But there is a higher level. Being with people who actively elevate you, people whose very presence inspires you to remember Allah, whose state awakens something within you, and whose words steer you toward what pleases Allah. If you cannot identify a spiritual benefit from a relationship, it may not be the most precious companionship. And if you notice that being with certain people increases your backbiting, gossip, or weakens your standards, then you must acknowledge the negative impact. Some friendships revolve around constant praise and emotional support, even when a person is drifting away from Allah. But true support, as the Prophet ﷺ taught, is helping your brother when he is wronged and when he commits wrong. How do you support someone who is committing wrong? By stopping them gently and sincerely, because you care more about their salvation than about maintaining a comfortable friendship. A friend who shares your error cannot correct you. A friend who is unaware of their own spiritual distance will not notice yours. A righteous companion will remind you when you fall short. A person whose spiritual state is solid will sense when you begin to stray. They love you enough to risk uncomfortable conversations because they care more about your hereafter than about pleasing you in the moment. A scholar once said that a person may be far from Allah yet convince themselves they are doing well simply because they compare themselves to people worse off. If you surround yourself with those who lack standards, you will feel content with minimal effort. But someone who truly wants nearness to Allah keeps company with people of ambition, people who also strive for Allah's pleasure. If you cannot feel a difference in your heart between being with someone who remembers Allah and someone who does not, then you are likely not being honest with yourself. The effect of companionship is unmistakable. when one is willing to see it. Finally, our relationships are not limited to the living. After the Prophet, peace be upon him, left this world, he had already established a relationship with us through his teachings, his love for his ummah, and his concern for our guidance. Sometimes our strongest sense of companionship comes from those of the past. Reading about the great personalities of Islam, especially the companions, can make you feel as if they are your close friends. Their stories can serve as guidance when no living advisor is available. Connecting yourself to the Prophet and his companions allows their practices, attitudes, and worldview to rub off on you through their preserved teachings. May Allah allow us to be influenced by those who guide us toward Him and allow us to positively influence others. May He help us let go of anything that distances us from Him, overlook our mistakes, and grant us the companionship of the Prophet, peace be upon him, in the hereafter. All praises for Allah.